Okay, so this week we're going to address a reasonably hot topic in the world of spare rooms, space, and the housing crisis. Buzzword for the year: boomers. I know that's used by you guys in Reading quite a lot. Is Reading baby boomers and the spare rooms debate? When should people downsize, Georgina? You've written a very extensive blog which has been published on our website, which I would urge people to have a quick look at, but we're going to chat about it today. First stat: the number of properties in Reading with 2 or more spare rooms currently stands at 18,411 to be precise, which is about 27% of Reading housing stock. Is that a problem?
Ultimately, yes, it is. When you talk about there being a housing crisis and there's not enough properties for everybody to live in, of course it is. You've got people that are in much bigger houses than they perhaps need, who are almost taking away that from the market where people actually do need these properties. Family homes. So once you've outgrown it, you do sort of argue, why are you knocking around in such a big house if you don't need it, unless you're going to use your spare rooms to foster children or do something worthwhile with the space. Yes, you might want the family to come and visit at Christmas, but ultimately, if that's only going to be once a year, would you be better suited cashing in now and freeing up that house for somebody who really does need it?
Yeah. So to give some context, there's roughly 9 million spare room properties in the UK. Spare room being you've got 2 empty bedrooms in your house, and there's about 900,000 households who are living where they're not in suitable accommodation. There's a ream of diagnostics which prove that, which is kids are between the age of 10 and 20 who are sharing a room of different sex and that kind of thing. But 9 million more bedrooms than people in the UK and 900,000 people living in what would be defined as inappropriate housing means that there shouldn't be a housing crisis, right?
Effectively, yeah, there's things that could be done to, alleviate some of it at least. So, yeah, it sort of begs the question of, if everybody looks across the whole scale of it, whether it would be something that, the more and more people that kind of realise that, the better for everybody involved. I think a lot of the issues that the older generation faces, they perhaps don't want to sell because they only want to move one more time, and it's whether that suitable accommodation is actually even available. Lots of people say that they want to downsize to a bungalow, and they want a detached bungalow because they're used to being in perhaps a detached house already. But how many new build developments actually have bungalows on them? It is so rare to find that. So I think the developers could give us a helping hand here and actually look at the sort of homes that could be helpful, not just the family homes, because the family homes, there's already plenty of them, as we can obviously see.
You've said bungalows. I've got the stats on bungalows
Oh, I
from
love
your blog.
stats.
1,800 new bungalows were built in 2020, yet 1 in 7 UK people aged over 65 want to live in a bungalow. There are 10 million people over 65 and
Yeah,
1,800 bungalows a year are being built.
it's not enough.
It's, I
It's
mean,
not.
we're a couple of zeros away from being enough, really, aren't we?
Hmm.
Not even close. So
Yeah.
it's a problem that the type of housing that people would consider moving to just doesn't exist anymore.
And I think that's part of the problem, is that they haven't got suitable accommodation that they would be happy to go to. And a lot of the time, if you're downsizing, they still want space, but they don't necessarily need the amount of bedrooms. So that's something to take into consideration as well. But the demand is clearly there for bungalows. It always has been. People always want them. So it's something certainly to be discussed, I think.
So both of us, unfortunately, are approaching middle age. We're
How
reasonably
dare
similar of
you?
our age groups. I am the elder in the room, which means we're both children of baby boomers. to an extent.
Yeah.
And I know that both of our baby boomer parents own not substantial, but nice family homes with spare bedrooms in.
Hmm.
When should we be telling our folks it's time to move on?
It's awkward, isn't it? It's a
Very,
difficult one.
very
Yeah,
awkward.
it's difficult. And I get that there's so much emotion and memories attached to the family house where the children were brought up and everything. I'm still very attached to my parents' house. I still call it my home. When I go and visit, I've still got a key. I go around whenever I want. If they move, I won't be able to do that anymore.
Well, the new owners won't be too pleased, will they?
Yeah. So I totally understand it. But I think ultimately, if you're getting down the route where you're getting to that age where you're going to die in this house, and be passing that on to your children, there's all sorts of issues that come up with things like probate. So having those sort of issues, surely it's better to release the money now and get to spend some of it, because generally when you're downsizing, you're releasing some of that capital that you've built up over years and
Yep.
years. Particularly if you're mortgage free as well. Why would you not want to enjoy that money in the last sort of golden years, as they refer to it? And have a smaller property, go on holidays, help out your children with a deposit on a house, because otherwise how else are they going to do it? We all know it's tricky to save up for these things. So I think it's awkward and it's sad, but sometimes it's the right thing to do so that you can open up so many other doors.
So, if we're saying maybe people should consider downsizing at the point where they don't need the space and they can actually utilize the equity that they've built up in their home over the years, you've been quite direct in the blog and said often mature home moves. I'll start that again. Often mature homeowners downsizing do so too late after an event such as a fall, an illness, or they're unable to maintain the basics of gardening and cleaning. So I guess people may force themselves into living a world of ignorance until it's too late. Should people be taking this in their own hands, downsizing early in order to be in a property that's suitable?
So I think, yeah, there is a bit of an ignorance there. It's we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's right around the corner. So to prepare earlier surely is going to benefit a lot of people. And I also think that what is working for you right now won't necessarily be working for you in the future. And it's about what you want to leave your children effectively. So it's something that should be discussed earlier rather than leaving it till it's too late to solve an issue.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. There's a general social message within the downsizing debate, which is if you're living in a property that doesn't suit you, and you're taking up space for others, and one person doing that will not alleviate a housing crisis. A whole movement of people doing that will actually make a big difference and allow the housing market to function better. The argument thrown at me, and it's a very fair argument, is what's the point in downsizing when it's going to cost me an absolute fortune to move? Because obviously heating bills are very high at the moment, but to move to save 100 quid on a heating bill is going to cost you tens of thousands of pounds, and therefore economically you will never make that money back. It's just not going to work. So should we be looking at the government here on a central basis? Because the tax situation at the moment means, yes, you'll have all your moving costs, but on top of that, you'll be expected to pay stamp duty on a property to downsize to. Should there be a carrot or a stick to people? Should people be beaten over the head and said, you've got 3 spare bedrooms in your property and therefore your council tax will be added to £100 per bedroom per month that they're empty, to beat them over the head to get out of these properties that they don't need? Or, slightly kinder, should there be a carrot to say, look, if you choose to move and downsize, then we'll go stamp duty free like we do for first time buyers? What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's got to be some sort of incentive there. And I think I'm a bit more of the carrot. I think that punishing people financially
Yeah,
because they're in a bigger property is not the way to go. But to offer that incentive that they would effectively save money, and it's a great not incentive, because first time buyers are going to buy anyway.
yeah.
So if anything, you could swatch that round, and have the savings that they make for first time buyers, do the same for the older people, so that they do have that natural sort of drive to know that they're going to be saving that money effectively, and know that it is going to be going on to the next family to enjoy.
So
Yeah.
controversially, or I'm going to put a controversial point to you, it would be nicer to give people a tax break to downsize than it would to give them a tax headache for not doing it. What would be more effective?
Oh, that's a bit of a mean question. I think, when you hit people in the wallet, that's when they do sit up and pay attention. So, yeah, I think you'd have to have year's worth of studies to sort of see what would actually be the most effective thing. But at the moment, I think it's clear that there's no incentive, there's no reason why somebody would give up their property if they can comfortably afford to, on their, generally it's a pension that's, a fixed income each month, and they can still afford it even with all the food and the energy prices rising to ridiculous levels. If that's still not going to get them to downsize, what will? And something needs to be done to change that. So
I
yeah.
think whichever way it goes, it needs to be easier and it needs to be more normalised. And as you quite rightly said, the housing stock needs to be available for people to go and choose from, because there's absolutely nowhere near the numbers of properties of the type and the need and the requirements that people have to downsize. So it's a complex issue, but overall message from myself and Georgina today is one that needs discussing first and foremost within the family, to see how you can help, how things can be done, and as you quite rightly said, how people in later life can enjoy the fruits of their labour rather than just sit in them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Georgina, thanks for joining me today. Can't wait till next week for episode number 14 of the Reading blog.